This chat that is tiny. We are we've been reading the prayers of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and trying to enter into them and understand the mind and heart of a pure devotee, which is so valuable since we're trying to become pure devotees. At least I hope we are. And so if if you want to become something, it's nice to like know someone that has become that and try to understand and enter their heart and mind. So that's what we're doing. That's very, very powerful. So we have some questions left. So we'll take those questions. Questions are in the chat, or you're going to put them in the chat?
They're in the chat.
Okay, so this first question is from Param Ishwari, although I don't see her here. And the next question is from Stu, and I don't see him here. Anyway, maybe we can somehow tell them their questions are being answered. Do you see if there is any similarity of what you share about Indian culture in terms of programming us to think something is better in our application of ISKCON community? Like devotees tend to think this service makes me appear more advanced or living in the temple is better. She's not here for me to ask clarification. So I'm going to have to try to decipher what she's asking because I don't. Does somebody understand the connection of Indian culture with her question? Any similarity of what you share about Indian culture in terms of programming us to think, oh, something is better in our application of ISKCON? I think she's saying, if it's Indian, does that make it better? Culturally, if it's Indian, does it make it better? I think service makes me appear more advanced or living in the temple. Oh, well, I think the general question is really what does it mean to be advanced? I mean, we could answer that question. The other points are examples of how you can appear to be advanced or more advanced. This question was asked to Prabhupada about living in the temple. And of course, in those days when this question was asked, most devotees lived in the temple. So if they didn't live in the temple, it was like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, how could you be so stupid as to not move in the temple? Well, if you were single, maybe yes. If you believed in Krishna consciousness and you had nothing else going on, yeah, that would make sense. So anyway, within that context, when all the young people were moving in the temple, a lot of devotees were not living in the temple as well. And so the idea of grihastha congregation, although that may seem weird to you, that was the exception, like living outside. So Prabhupada said, you can be Krishna conscious anywhere. But he said, if you're trading at the stock market, it's easier to make money. Of course, that was then. Nowadays, you can trade digitally. But he meant if you're with people doing the same thing, then it's easier. So, I could definitely say you could never fool Prabhupada that you were advanced by some external sign. Because Prabhupada could see through all our pretension. And we didn't even have to try to pretend. He could just see our consciousness. There's a story Rita Anandamarsh tells that Prabhupada was on a morning walk and some Indian man was there. And he was quoting some shlokas. And Prabhupada was very happy. Oh, very nice, very nice. So Sridhananda Maharaj thought, well, I'll quote some shlokas because I'll get praised also. So he said, and Prabhupada, there's this shloka. And Prabhupada said, there are so many shlokas. Like, don't try to impress me that you know this shloka. It was like, Prabhupada knew. So, um, it's like if you saw Prabhupada's dealings with devotees, he never dealt with people differently in terms of his personal relationship based on their position. He may have dealt with them differently on a practical level because of their position, which of course is normal. But he never dealt with people, oh, he's a sannyasi, therefore he's better. There's another story. Now, Prabhupada came to Los Angeles every year, and usually I was there. And when Prabhupada traveled in America, many of the sannyasis and leading devotees would follow him. They wouldn't travel with him, but they knew where he was going and they would either drive or fly there. And so there'd always be lots of sannyasis when Prabhupada would come. Well, so many devotees would come that didn't live in the temple. And at that time, I don't know what year this was, but Tripurari Maharaj, I don't know if he was a sannyasi then, but he was the leading book distributor in India and, in America. And so Prabhupada came and, all the leaders would just kind of hang around with him as much as they could, go into his room. When he would go to the garden, go there like that. And so we were told that Prabhupada was in the garden with his leaders, and maybe Tripurari Maharaj had taken sannyas at this point, but it probably did, because I think that's why Prabhupada was asking, where is he? Because all the sannyasis were there. And they said, Srila Prabhupada, he's at the airport distributing your books. And then Prabhupada looked at all the sannyasis. No, this would make sense that he's not a sannyasi. Prabhupada looked at the sannyasis and said, he's doing more service than all of you. And he could have been a grihasta at that point, because in the early days of his Krishna consciousness, he was married. So that was Prabhupada. Prabhupada wasn't foolish enough to think that some external position or action necessarily indicated your level of Krishna consciousness. So, it works both ways. You can have a very external Krishna conscious position and not be Krishna conscious, and vice versa. Then we have that story of Gadadhar Pandit and Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi was living apparently very lavishly. And when Gadadhar Pandit met him, can you imagine, some devotee, some respected devotee, supposedly respected advanced devotee, comes to the temple, and he's like wearing, he's dressed like the deity, kind of, long earrings and beautiful clothes and long hair, and you'd probably think, oh, this is something wrong with this picture. And that's how Gadadhar thought until, who brought him there? Was it Nityananda Prabhu who brought him there? Does anyone remember?
Mukunda Prabhuji.
Mukunda. And he said, I want you to meet a pure devotee. And then when he saw him, he's like, really? And then he quoted a verse, how merciful Krishna is, I believe. It was the verse about Putana, the whole Bakistam, Kalakutam, Stam, Kala, yeah. And then he fell off his bed in ecstasy. So I think it's kind of like, when you're in India and you're buying cloth from a cloth dealer you can't trust, and he says it's silk, you light it, because if it's plastic, it burns differently than silk. Have you ever done that? Yeah. You should know. Talk to Prema Nishna. She'll train you. Yeah. If it's polyester is plastic, so it'll when it burns, it forms a little hard, right? Isn't it? A little hard needle or something. And if it's a natural material, it'll just burn. So it was kind of like that with sometimes with devotees, you can't tell externally what they're like until you light them. And then when you light them, you see, oh, I thought it was polyester, but I see it's silk, or I thought it was silk, but I see it's polyester. It doesn't mean that observation of certain etiquette and cultural considerations and etc. is wrong, I think, or bad or irrelevant or not important. It's really, I think this question really relates to us judging people based on externals. And it's just my experience that often the person you think who's not doing well, when you talk to them, you see they have very deep realizations and they're very deeply Krishna conscious. And it just doesn't necessarily look like it externally for whatever reason. It's not an excuse to say we don't need sadhana, we don't need sangha, and we don't need to see the deities and so forth. There's another story. You may have heard this story, but stories are good because they illustrate this point. When Prabhupada returned from his conquering America, so to speak, well, you could say he conquered for Krishna, came back to Mayapur, and as you may know, there were some of his godbrothers that, for one reason or another, were not exactly happy about everything that Prabhupada did to spread Krishna consciousness. And I think this is like human nature. We see this. It seems to be an eternal principle that amongst the family, someone excels and some people don't like it. It makes them, I don't know. We could say it makes them feel a failure themselves. That they want to make the other person a failure so they don't feel like a failure. That could be, or they just feel that person is not really properly connected to their guru, not representing them, something like that. So Prabhupada came to Mayapur. When you come to Mayapur, you drive by the Gaudiya Math that has the Samadhi of Bhaktisiddhanta. We go there every year. It's the biggest Gaudiya Math. Sri Chaitanya. It's past the Yoga. First you come to Yoga Pith, then you come. This is Bhakti Vilas Tirtha's place. This was the headquarters. Then you have Gorgashwar Das Babaji's Samadhi. You have the deities of the four acharyas of the Sampradaya. You have the main deities. I forgot their name. Radha Gandharvika Giridhari, maybe. And you have Govardhan. They brought stones from Govardhan and they've dug a Radha Kund and a Shama Kund there. So when Prabhupada drove into Mayapur, he drove by and he didn't stop. And some of the godbrothers thought, this is like a bad sign. There's something wrong here. That he is coming to Mayapur. He's driving right by the Samadhi of his Guru Maharaj, and he doesn't stop and get in and pay obeisances. And so Prabhupada heard this criticism, and Srila Prabhupada said, they do not know, that they said, why didn't he visit his Guru Maharaj? And he said, they do not know. I'm always with my Guru Maharaj. So it looks like he's disrespecting his Guru, but internally, he's always with his Guru. And so my experience is whenever you doubt someone's Krishna consciousness, just make the assumption that their Krishna consciousness is probably a lot deeper and a lot more real than you think. Because when you do bhakti every day for decades, it goes deep. Even if externally you show up at the temple in a t-shirt and shorts and a beard and whatever else, 10 tattoos, 4 earrings, no tilak, a weird tie-dye shirt. You can find things that would indicate this devotee seems to be not Krishna conscious. But my experience is when you talk to them, aside from the external, and of course the opposite is true, that we should never think that just by doing the externals, that makes me Krishna conscious. It might, if obviously, if I'm wearing tilak, I'm wearing something to remind me of Radharani. I wear this to remind myself, Sri Radha. I always wear tilak because that's part of our Vaishnava makeup, or Prabhupada said jewelry, I think. It protects us, it marks the body. As we get to chant the names of Vishnu, Narayana, Madhavaya, Govindaya, Vishnavaya, Vamanaya, Sridhara, like etc. Keshavaya. And my Ayurvedic doctor said it's actually healthy. It cools the head down. The more tilak on your forehead, the better. So, don't let anyone ever put down tilak. It cools the brain. You need a cool brain to be Krishna conscious. You can put it on your eyes also, on your eyelids. It's healthy, he said, although that's not generally recommended for Vaishnavas, but it's purifying. So, but just because I wear tilak doesn't mean automatically I'll be Krishna conscious, right? Or just because I'm in the temple, as we say, as the Christians say, you don't become a saint by standing in a church no more than you become a car by standing in a garage. Have you heard that before? Yeah. So that's the idea that, okay, I put tilak on, dhoti, shari, I go to the temple, I ring the bell, because I'm letting Krishna know I'm coming in. Ring the bell, I'm clean, I've bathed, clean cloth. All this is good and it all helps because it's all sattvic and it's all proper and it's what Krishna wants us to do. But it doesn't guarantee a change of heart because ultimately we have to change our heart. So it's all conducive. And you might say, well, I'm getting purified by seeing the deity putting on tilak. Yeah, that's true. But you have to also be in the right consciousness. You could possibly wear tilak just to make people believe that you're a good devotee. That could be your motive for wearing tilak, right? So you can always or you can wear tilak. You can be such a good artist that your tilak is better than everyone's, and you can walk around the temple thinking, "Wow, I'm looking at everyone's tilak. Definitely mine is the best." So you're putting on tilak has just caused you to become proud. Better don't put on tilak if that's the case. So anything which is meant for our purification can be misused. That's for sure, right? So I'm not saying we don't do these things, but I'm saying definitely in and of themselves, not necessarily will it purify us. Chanting the holy name is purifying, but in and of itself, maybe not. If I make offenses, then it's not. Seeing the deities is purifying. Well, what do you see when you see the deity? You look at the deity and say, Krishna, I don't like you because I don't have $1 million. Like, why didn't you give me $1 million? I cook for you every day. I worship you every day. And all I have is, you could be seeing the deity that way, making offenses to Krishna. Although one devotee in the temple, he was like yelling, he was angry with the deity because we didn't have a car. He's like, why aren't you giving the devotees a car? Because I was in Mauritius and it was raining a lot. So they had to take a bus and the bus stop was like 10-minute walk. You're making the devotees take a bus and walk to the bus. He was like really angry at the deity. And then he had to go into town. Someone he knew showed up in a BMW and he got a ride. So sometimes it works. But I don't recommend getting angry at the deity unless you have a lot of love. Although sometimes I do that also. Krishna, why? Why you don't give me more of a taste? Why? That's good if you do it in the right way. But anyway, that's another topic. So then the question that's being asked here is also about Indian culture. And is Indian culture good or is it not good? Well, how can you answer that question without being specific? What about Indian culture? And do you mean Vaishnav culture or Indian culture, or Vedic culture or Vaishnav culture or Indian culture. There's so many good things we learn in India, and Prabhupada said one of the reasons we go to India is to learn culture. But there's so many things in India, as in every country, which is materialistic and corrupted. So we obviously don't go to learn that, but it's Indian because it's in India, but doesn't have any connection with our Vedic culture and so forth. So, the principles, whatever's conducive, do it. So there's so many things conducive in Indian culture for our bhakti, and so many things in Western culture, they're also conducive, and vice versa in India and in the West, not conducive. But of course, Indian culture is more connected with the foundations of Krishna consciousness. So there's natural. The culture embodies things which are natural to Krishna consciousness. I think most traditional cultures are more religious, and they embody that. And these things they're all going to pot right now. And if you look at modern culture, what's going on in modern culture is a rejection of any kind of authority, any kind of restriction. And you see that all over the place. What I think is this. So everybody, it's like, well, whatever you think, that's your right to think that way and say whatever you think, no matter how ridiculous it is. And we all have to respect that, even though it may be harmful for you, harmful for others, harmful for your family, your children. And we see a lot of that today, don't we? The way certain people are thinking, it's so harmful for them and harmful for their families. And they don't understand it. So that's sad, and Indian culture is also being affected by it. It's just going to take longer because it has a deeper culture. And it'll probably never entirely be annihilated, I would imagine. But Western influence, as some people said, America exports its sewer water to the world in terms of sewer water. It's sewer water culture, and then the whole world picks up on it, which would be great if America were Krishna conscious. Then just by making America Krishna conscious, we would distribute the nectar water to the world. And that was Prabhupada's idea. And I don't know how long it's going to be that American culture affects the world. It could be Indian culture at some point and Chinese culture. That would be better if they have deeper values. Even Chinese or atheists, they probably, maybe, I don't know, I can't say. I can't comment on that. But if India could export its culture to the world, that's what Prabhupada wanted. Or make America Krishna conscious, then we'll export it to the world. Make India Krishna conscious and export that to the world. We can do both. Anyway, so I think is there anything else in that question that I didn't answer? Can anybody say? That's an interesting question because if a devotee is quote unquote more advanced, they would do A, B, and C. But because someone is doing A, B, and C, doesn't mean they're more advanced. I think that's kind of what the question was asking. So I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think then another answer to this question is the more you understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the motive is, the context, culturally, historically, scripturally, the more you have a 360-degree view of something, the more properly you can do it. So a lot of devotees, especially in the beginning, they don't understand why they're doing something. And so they often have a very black and white understanding because that's what they've been given, and that's maybe their capacity. They don't have a capacity for nuanced understanding until they're older devotees. And some people don't like nuance. They just like, tell me, is it like this or like this? Well, it's a little here. No, it can't be here. It has to be this or that. So some people just think that way. But the more we understand Krishna consciousness, the better. The more we understand it. There's so many instructions, so many lessons that require a very big brain, broad brain, as Mahatma. Mahatma means broad-minded. It requires a broad mind to understand. So when you understand with a little mind, then you can often misunderstand, then you mislead others and you mislead yourself. And so I was just hearing a discussion today about karma, which is it's one of the most interesting discussions you can have is about karma, because it's not so straightforward, but the way we tend to understand karma is very black and white. So Chaitanya Charan was saying, when Draupadi was being tormented in the arena, nobody said, well, Draupadi, it's your karma. Nobody said that. The righteous people said, this is a dharmic and this must be stopped. So he's making a very simple point, which is very practical. And the point is that if something is a dharmic, we do not do it, and we, in the name of it's your karma. Here, Prabhu, it's your karma. Punch you in the nose. Punching in the nose is wrong. It's a dharmic, so we don't do it in the name of your karma. How would I know it's your karma anyway? He gave another example, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the bull. The bull was being beaten, and Parikshit Maharaj said, what's going on here? And Parikshit Maharaj knew he was being beaten. He said, and so Parikshit Maharaj said, what's happening? Why is it happening? Why are you suffering? He said, well, the obvious answer is I'm suffering because personality of Kali was beating me. But that's not the answer the bull gave. And that's not the question Parikshit Maharaj was asking. He was asking, why do you think this is happening? What are there other reasons, deeper reasons? So it's an interesting discussion, right? It's not just what you think is happening and is happening, just what you see, and not your black and white understanding. Oh, it must be your karma. He gave another example, like you have a baby and your baby's hungry and the baby's crying. And the mother doesn't say, well, it's just your karma that you're hungry. If you're supposed to eat, you'll eat. That would be pretty stupid. But you could understand karma that way, right? You could, with the black and white understanding of karma, you could say, well, if my child is meant to go hungry, they'll go hungry no matter what I do. It says right there in the Bhagavatam, even if you have good parents, you might die. So I'm a good parent, my child has good parents, but it might go hungry. It's right there in the Bhagavatam. So if you take things foolishly, out of context, without understanding the depth of it, then it's harmful for your own bhakti, because then you can do the right thing completely mess it up in the total wrong way. And another thing we see one of the problems of doing everything in the right way is you become proud and you become critical of those who don't do it that way. So if you have this black and white concept of karma or black and white concept of anything and you're self-righteous, then you're going to be upset with people who don't have the same limited misunderstanding you do. So it's it's so important to understand as much as you can about everything in Krishna consciousness and understand it in a very practical way. So that when you do the right thing, you know why you do it and you can do it in the right mood, because it's so much more beneficial when you do something you're supposed to do if you do it understanding why. It's like almost like another universe in terms of the benefit you get when you understand why to do it. And you have the right consciousness and the right motive when you do it. And we know that with japa, so I think maybe that's the best example. You don't know why you're chanting, you don't know what the meaning of the mantra is, you don't know. It's, as I said, you let your heart move your lips. You don't understand it's your heart that moves your lips, not your lips. All these things. We have that experience from attending japa workshops. The more you understand what it is, what it means, how to connect, how to pray, and so forth, you're chanting the same mantra. It's completely different. So That's my short answer to your question. As you know, sometimes I take these questions as lecture topics because they're good questions. Now we have a question from Stu. I'm assuming it's Stuart, right? But I don't know if he's here to answer. Anyway, I'm confused about the text in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, text 4, purport that according to the politician Shanaka Pandit, where in his view, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. Can you give us some context? Well, according to Chanaka Pandit, that includes politicians also. And I think it probably was assumed in that culture it would include Shudras, because how can you trust a Shudra? And what to speak of the outcast? So the only two people you can trust, maybe three. Can you trust Vaishyas? I don't know. Not modern day Vaishyas. According to Prabhupada, you can't trust Vaishyas. So only Kshatriyas and Brahmins. And today there's hardly any real Kshatriyas and Brahmins. But what Chanaka was saying is, if a person can't control his senses, you can't trust him because they'll act on their emotions. So I say, Stu, I love you. I'll do anything you want. Just tell me and I'll do it. And you say, okay, I'll call you up next week. And then you call me up next week and say, this is what I need you to do. And I say, well, I don't really feel like it doing that. So I'm not going to do it. You say, but you said you do anything. Yeah, well, that's how I was feeling last week, but I don't feel that way this week. So that's why Chanaka says you can't trust them, because a person who cannot control themselves cannot commit. And if somebody can't commit, how can you trust them? So now, how do women get put in this category? Like you can trust men and you can't trust women? Well, this is another discussion. But if I say anything more, I might get in trouble. But I have often said, and this is pure speculation, but when we make this drastic contrast between men and women, we see now in Kali Yuga, the line between men and women is not that drastic because women are becoming like men and men are becoming like women. And everybody's kind of going down. So let's just leave it at this, that in Chanaka Pandit's time, we could say generally men were more self-controlled than women. Oh, we wrote off politicians also. That only leaves Brahmins. You can't trust anybody but a Brahmin. So you can't trust any man who's not a Brahmin. Basically, that's what, I mean, you could interpret Chanaka Pandit saying this way. But this idea is given in Vedic literature that men are more self-controlled than women, generally. Maybe it's true today, maybe it's not, but that's the context it's coming from. Are there women who are more self-controlled than men? Oh yeah, of course. Can you trust them? Of course. Are there politicians who are self-controlled and honest? Yeah. Are there Brahmins, so-called, who are not? Yeah. It's Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, it's really hard to generalize, but Shastra generalizes, and we get into trouble when Shastra generalizes, because when it generalizes, she'll say, yeah, but I know women who are way more controlled than their husbands. And I wouldn't argue with that. This is a broad generalization. So what's the generalization? Well, the generalization is men are more detached and women are more attached. If women were detached, how could they have kids? Because they'd have kids that go, yeah, whatever, I'm traveling and preaching, if you're going to live, you'll live. You can't raise kids if you're detached. If you ever see a mother who's detached, immediately you feel awkward. It's like, why is she like neglecting the kids? She doesn't care if something's wrong, right? So women were created to be a little more attached. And men, they get the women pregnant, they go away. They're detached in a bad way. So that's where that idea comes. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can observe that. But, you know, Kali Yuga, it's so hard to generalize. I mean, you see general differences between men and women, but some of I think the differences that existed in ancient times are getting more and more blurred, which is why some of these statements are confusing. But I want to read something to you. This is going to smash your brain. Are you ready? You have your brain smashed in a good way. Let me see if I remember. This is the story where Daksha had his head cut off, literally, lost his head, literally. And he was given the benediction that he could have another head put on. And the only head available was a goat's head. And so he put on the goat head, and now Daksha is like, he just looks like a goat. His head looks like a goat, and like that. But he can speak, he can think. He's the same Daksha, but he's got a goat head. Isn't that interesting? Listen to this. It appears from the exchange of Daksha's head that the modern scientific theory that the brain substance is the cause of all intelligent work is not valid. This is what Prabhupada used to say, women have less brain substance than men, because he heard that from his professor. And now Prabhupada's looking at this and saying, oh, maybe that's wrong. Have you heard this purport before? This is like when everyone says, what about this 3264 women less intelligent? This is 475. Tattoo that on your arm. You may need it. Well, especially if you're a woman, you need it. Now, all you women who are thinking, you know, that you're stupid, now you can think you're not. And now you can like act to your full capacity. Modern theory that the brain substance is the cause of all intelligent work is not valid. The brain substance of Daksha and that of a goat are different, but Daksha still acted like himself, even though his head was replaced by that of a goat. The conclusion is that it is the particular consciousness of an individual soul which acts. The brain substance is only an instrument, which has nothing to do with real intelligence. Wow, what a relief. This purport should accompany this purport here, right? Yes? Because the women will read this purport and like 8 years later, they'll read this purport. And so for 8 years, they'll be thinking they're less intelligent and like doing stupid things. And finally, they'll read this purport and they go, oh, I'm not so stupid. And they'll stop doing stupid things. Right? So better hear this purport first, right? Okay, ladies, you don't have to do anything stupid anymore. You have no excuse. You can't use 140 anymore. If you ever do anything stupid, you go, whoa, it says in 140 I'm less intelligent. What do you expect? You can't use that verse anymore. The real intelligence, mind, and consciousness are part of the particular individual soul. It will be found in the verses ahead that after Daksha's head was replaced by the goat's head, he was as intelligent as he had previously been. Yeah. Therefore, it is definitely concluded that the brain substance is not the center of intelligence. It is the consciousness of a particular soul that works intelligently. Doesn't matter what kind of brain one has, because if he simply transfers his consciousness from matter to Krishna, his life becomes successful. Anyone who takes up Krishna consciousness achieves the highest perfection, regardless of whatever abominable condition of life he may have fallen into. Specifically, anyone in Krishna consciousness goes back to Godhead, back to home on leaving his present material body. Wow. Good news for all the ladies. Bad news for all the men who wanted to think they're smarter than the ladies. Sorry, guys, for the bad news. Hare Krishna. Yes, okay. That's your answer, Stu. I don't think Stu's here, but maybe I can note down the time. I don't know how to note down the time, but it's like hour and 10 minutes after we started. Yeah. Okay, next question. This is from Radha Vinod Dasi. I have heard before that Krishna takes away our karma to some extent. For example, if we get into a car accident, we break a leg instead of becoming paralyzed or something worse. So who is at play here? Krishna's actions or karma? This is true. Prabhupada gave a lecture. I was at the lecture. I believe I was at the lecture. And he said, if you were supposed to get your head chopped off, you'll get a little cut. So who's at play here? Krishna, as Prabhupada says, the king takes care of all the citizens, but the king personally takes care of his family. You want to hear something amazing? Last week I was mentioning when Krishna says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu, I'm equal to all. He's talking about his position as super soul. Then I said, the second part of the verse, Name dvesho stinapriya, I don't, I don't hate, Krishna says, I'm equal, I don't hate anyone, I don't love anyone, but mam bhaktya maite teshu chapiham, but one who renders service to me in devotion, I'm a friend. So we know Krishna's not neutral. Like Radharani comes, the gopis come, the coward mother, and Krishna's like, yeah, whatever. No, if he doesn't meet Radharani, he laments, right? And he reciprocates with every devotee. He's not neutral with the devotees at all, right? And that's why in the second half of the verse he says, but I don't go around saying Black Lives Matter or I don't like black people. That's not what Krishna does, Jewish people, forget them. I don't like them. They have too much money. It's not, Krishna's like, he has no reason to not like or like anyone. So basically Krishna is saying, I just reciprocate with what you give me. So if you give me love, I give you love. If you give me nothing, then I don't love you or hate you. It's just potentially I love you in a broad sense. You're welcome. So here's something very interesting that goes along with this idea, and this is from Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami presented this idea, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, 9th chapter, I think it's text 29 or something. I'm equal to all, that's Paramatma speaking. Whoever renders service to me in love, then I reciprocate, that's Krishna speaking. Same verse, but Krishna's voice in one. So Jiva Goswami said, Paramatma is in your heart, right? As Krishna says, I'm in everyone's heart. But when you become a devotee, it now becomes Bhagavan in your heart, not Paramatma. Because now you're a devotee, so it's different. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I many times said, who's in your heart? Well, whoever you're thinking of is in your heart. So I don't think devotees meditate on Paramatma, do they? They meditate on Krishna. So it's natural. So from both ways, we think of Krishna, but the Paramatma transforms into Bhagavan. Interesting, isn't it? Okay. Yeah. So now Krishna's taking care of us. And if we surrender completely, then we're completely under Krishna's control. Can Krishna interfere? He can. Does he want to? Sometimes. Does he bless us with things outside of our karma that we shouldn't get? Yes. Does our karma act on us? Sometimes. If Krishna feels that will be helpful. But the problem, Radha noted, is that karma is such a complicated topic that sometimes something bad happens, we can't understand why. We have no idea. And we don't know why Krishna would allow it. And sometimes it's like we say, I was on the roof fixing my roof tiles and I slipped off and fell. And I hurt myself and I lost all my faith in Krishna. Why did Krishna let me fall off the roof? And, well, the answer is because you're a klutz or you weren't careful. That's the answer. Or some answer like that. You should have been more careful. But then, okay, all right, I'm a klutz. I should have been more careful. I was too close to the edge and I slipped. And I couldn't stop myself. But why did Krishna allow the law of gravity? He should have just stopped the law of gravity, so the whole world would just freeze, right? Be no gravity, right? For that, 4 seconds that I was falling. And he could have just pulled me down like he did with Prahlad Maharaj. Well, generally he doesn't work that way, although he could. So it's important that no devotee ever thinks, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to follow the laws of nature. And I'm a devotee and Krishna will protect me. And if he doesn't, then I lose my faith in him. That is bad philosophy, isn't it? Don't you think? I think so. In my universe, that is bad philosophy. And I just threw some light on the topic. So now, we as devotees are supposed to I think it's really important as devotees that we look at our suffering. First, we ask, what did I do? Not in my past life, but what did I do in this life? What did I do in the last 5 minutes to create this problem? A lot of times, for example, people are upset with us and we think, look, that person, they're so bad, etc. You could ask, what did I do to upset them? Because often they're upset because of something I did. So, a lot of times when something bad happens, Krishna, how could you do that? Yeah, well, it's because you ate this that you're sick. It's because you went out last night and it was 40 degrees below zero and you were wearing a swimming suit. That's why you're sick. But I'm a devotee, you should protect me. Well, he can protect you if you want, and he might, but we don't live that way. We live practically. So that's the first place to look. Why is this happening? People are turning against me. Because you're screaming at everybody. That's why they're turning against you. Hello, just see. So sometimes it's obvious and we don't even notice it and we blame Krishna. Please, please, please don't blame Krishna. If you're blaming Krishna, you're trying to escape responsibility. Just be straightforward about it. Krishna is not against you. We are against ourselves. As I've often said, some devotees are saying, why is Krishna treating me this way? Or I'm afraid to surrender because he'll harm me. It's like, no. You have it backwards. Krishna is not the enemy. We're the enemy. We're the ones who mess our lives up, not him. And I'm afraid to surrender because he'll mess my life up. So I'll surrender to myself, maintain my independence. But that's what's messing your life up. So it's backwards, right? Isn't it? Yes? So we should be afraid of ourselves, not Krishna, not even. So that's one thing. Now, if I have some past karma, so it's like I can look at my life and say, there's some suffering and I don't see any correlation. I'm very nice to this person. I work very hard. Somehow or other, I got cheated. My partner cheated on me. My business partner cheated on me. I've just been a good person. I've not done anything to harm them, etc. So there might be some past karma. Then you think, well, if it's past karma, I thought Krishna said he removes karma, and he does. But if Krishna sees that, oh, well, if this business person did not cheat you, you'd be a multi-billionaire now, and I would never see your face again. You would totally turn your back on me because I know you better than you. You know yourself, and therefore I decided, no, I don't want you to be a billionaire. It's not going to work. And you say, if I'm a billionaire, I'll give money to Krishna. And Krishna goes, no, you won't. You'll just buy 10 Ferraris or something and 10 mansions. I know that, so I'm not going to let it happen. So that could be. Or you have some karma here. I'm not going to let it go because you'll learn something from it. So that could be also. But the main thing is, please, please don't ever blame Krishna for anything. That is like, you're trying to develop a loving relationship with someone who loves you, and then you do something to create your own suffering, and then you blame him. Krishna, I pray to you every day, and you don't give me this. You don't give me that. Yeah. Maybe he has a reason. Maybe we need to understand the reason. Maybe I need to become qualified. Maybe there's something there. You know, sometimes devotees say, I pray to Krishna, you know, for a husband, for a wife, and he's not giving. And I know those devotees have no idea what it takes to be married. And they're not mature enough to be able to fulfill the needs of another person because they're so needy themselves. They can't think beyond their own needs. But if they got married, if they think they're suffering now, it would be worse after they got married. And I can understand Krishna is telling them, you know, mature a little more before I send a husband to you, because otherwise you'll suffer. And I don't want you to suffer. But from our position, I think Krishna doesn't love me. I'm praying. All my other friends are married and I'm not. So I'm not saying it's the only reason that may not happen. Could be. And then we're supposed to become attached to Krishna. So let's say you find a perfect relationship. This person is like, they're a carbon copy of you, like everything you could imagine. It's just like everything I think, they think. Everything I want, they want. Everything I like, they like. We're like twins. This is like, we understand one another, and it's like, we're like just amazing, right? What might happen in a situation like that? Maybe this relationship will be so good that you feel like, I don't really need a relationship with Krishna because this one's good enough. Possible, right? Isn't it? Could be. At least what we learn from the demigods is like, the demigods are like, I don't know how I can develop prema because it's like things are too nice and it's like so difficult, right? So Krishna might look at you and say, yeah, well, you have this karma for amazing success, amazing wealth, amazing relationships, amazing this and that. But I know you, and I know if you have all that, you're going to forget me, and I don't want you to forget me. So even though it's not your karma to fail, I'm going to cause you to fail. Like Prabhupada said, his karma was to be very wealthy, one of the wealthiest men in India. And he said, my Guru Maharaj ruined it because he knew I was meant to spread Krishna consciousness. And if I had all this wealth and so forth, it wouldn't have happened. I don't know practically what that means. But anyway, Prabhupada said, by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, my business did not work out. And so I had nothing left to do but follow his order. And so the assumption is maybe Prabhupada would not have followed his order. Maybe he would have just given lots of money to temples and Gaudiya Math, and that was his seva, possibly, so that Krishna may intervene also. First go-to place when we're suffering is, what did I do to create this? If we can't figure it out, the next go-to place must be some karmic reaction. And then the next thing is, well, how can I benefit from this? How can I become more detached? What can I learn from this? Can this be good in some way? And I was thinking today, something interesting thought. And I think we understand this, but sometimes it's good to state what we understand because we don't think about it, or maybe we don't articulate it as I would articulate it. So in our society today, we are programmed, whether you believe it or not, we are programmed to accept that certain things would make us happy, right? Beautiful marriage, beautiful kids, beautiful home, lots of money, lots of friends, etc., etc. Comforts, lots of comforts, lots of beautiful places to go, vacations, just comfortable car. Just all these things will make me happy. And sometimes, not that they won't necessarily, for some people they won't. But sometimes what makes us happy is not the sense gratification, it's the austerity. Like, if you want to do something, you think I really like to do this. This will satisfy my mind, or my eyes, my ears, my tongue, my sense of touch, or my belly. It'll satisfy one of those things, and I really want to do it. And you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't do that because it's not good for me. Maybe I should control it. Although I really like it, I think I'm going to control it. I'm going to give it up. I'm not going to do it, right? And at the end of the day, you are much happier. You feel much better than you would have felt if you did it, right? So where in this materialistic society does anybody talk about how you're happy by not doing the things that make you happy, so-called make you happy? You're happier often by not doing them. I'm not going to eat this anymore. I'm not going to talk to this person anymore. I'm not going to, argue with this person anymore. I'm not going to watch this, listen to this, whatever it is, although I really want to do it. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yes, I feel like I've conquered. Who did I conquer? Conquered my mind. I feel fantastic. I didn't give in. Your life, my life, all of our lives are going in a certain direction. Think of your life like a car. We're the driver. You can drive that car any way you want. And at every moment, excuse me, at every moment, we're making decisions. Every moment, isn't it? Like right now, you're making a decision to sit here, and you could leave, right? So even though you don't realize you're making a decision to stay in this class, you are. And when this class is over, you're going to make another decision, and all day you're going to make decisions. What are you going to do? What are you going to eat? What are you going to not do? What are you going to read, not read, listen to, not listen? It's just like, so who can we blame for what's going on? Don't blame Krishna for your own decisions. You say, no, I have no control. We have control over how we think about what we don't have control over. So don't ever think, I have no control. No, you're jiva. Jivas have control. You're not some new tattva. You're new tattva, the no control. You're a non-jiva. I'm not a jiva anymore. I'm a non-jiva. No, you're not you can never be a non-jiva. You always have choice, right? You always have choice of how you, even if it's like, it's beyond my control. I can't change the weather. I can't control my husband. I can't control my parents. I can't control this, that, and the next thing. But you can control how you interface with it, right? Or if you want to interface with it, and how you interface with it, and how you respond to that interaction. It's not like we don't have any control. So Krishna always has our best interest in mind. And if we create a situation, or we create a story about what's going on that puts Krishna in a bad light, the defect is, we have to see that's our own defect. That's very, very important, because we all have stories about life. Atheists have stories. There couldn't be a God because they're suffering. So we're not atheists. Krishna couldn't love me because I suffer. It's very similar to atheism. It's not logical, right? As I've often said, and I will say again, when you go back to Godhead, you're going to ask Krishna, why did you put me through hell and back so many times? And Krishna will say, I didn't want to. It hurt me more than it hurt you, but you needed it. I know you needed it, so I did it. And I cried more than you cried. Yeah. You know those times when you're ill, and you have a headache that it's so bad, you feel like, could I die now, Krishna? That would be, like, not that I wish that on anybody, but it's in those moments we realize, wow, having a body is really a punishment. And I'm usually thinking having a body is like, it's a real pleasure, right? I can eat so many things, see things, taste things, hear things, do so many things, enjoy, right? Until you get really sick, and then you realize, or go to the dentist, and you realize, having a body is not so good, I forgot. So sometimes Krishna might say, well, I'm going to remind you because you forget. And if you don't forget, I don't have to remind you. So that might be there also. So these are the ways that we try to see things. Otherwise, what other explanation is there? Well, another explanation is there is no God, or he's not in control, or another explanation is, which has truth to it, this world is bad and people do bad things, and I'm in this world, and sometimes someone's shooting a gun, hunting, and you just happen to be in the forest and you get shot. So it's something like this Kali Yuga, we're getting shot. And it's just bad news being here. But I always think, even though it's bad news, Krishna has given us so much to be able to deal with it, and that's the blessing. So I don't think Krishna, I don't sit and pray, Krishna, change this, change that. I pray more, allow me to absorb and implement the ways in which you've instructed me to live so that I can deal with it. Because I can't stop things. We can't stop getting old, but we can stop being disturbed by getting old. We can be happy getting old. Even when your hair turns gray and you're full of wrinkles, you can think, but I'm more Krishna conscious now than when I was 25, so I'm happy. Right? Otherwise, you're going to think, I'm so ugly. My life is ruined. I don't want to go out on the street anymore. People don't think I'm beautiful. You can think like that also. It's your choice, right? But Krishna is giving us the way to think so we can be happy in spite of what's going on. Yes? And if we're complaining, but Krishna, things aren't going on well, maybe it's for our benefit, or maybe we just did something stupid and we're blaming him for doing something stupid ourselves, that's like double bad, isn't it? You get in a car accident, you blame your parents. Well, if you didn't give me a car to drive, I wouldn't have gotten an accident. Well, yeah, but you begged me for 3 hours to use the car. Just to get you out of my hair, I let you take the car. And now you're blaming me for giving you the keys. Yeah, so it's like that. We beg Krishna to give us something, we misuse it, and then we blame him. Why are you allowing me to suffer? Well, this is what you wanted. But what we also see is, example Prabhupada said, when his body was falling apart, he didn't complain. He just said, what do you expect? I'm an old man. He didn't say, I can't understand why Krishna, I'm the guru of the Hare Krishna movement. I can't understand why Krishna is doing this to me. He just said, what do you expect? I'm an old man. Isn't that amazing? How ill Prabhupada was and how he never complained. Isn't that amazing? And all the difficulties Prabhupada went through and he didn't complain, and he had He had every right to complain, didn't he? He had so many disciples who had so many problems that he had to deal with. And he had such a big organization with so much to manage. It was a lot to complain about. Okay. Each question becomes a class. Okay. Abhishek says, shouldn't we just be trained to look beyond the external qualities as in the beginning of the we learned not to trust our senses? Yeah. I think he's referring to, are you referring to the original topic? To not look at the external qualities of a person as an evaluation, because our senses are imperfect. That idea is there, but I think it's more of pride I think pride is the reason we do that more than imperfect senses. You know, there's so many things we do and say, and we don't realize why we're doing and saying them, but we're doing them and saying them to kind of soothe ourselves, to make ourselves feel good at the cost of putting somebody down, because that's who we are. So it's important to reflect on when you do something. Are you saying something or viewing something that's accurate, or are you just saying it or viewing it because you need to validate something in yourself that's not really right, but you don't want to admit it? That's possible. You know, sometimes when there's philosophical debate and discussion, there's a lot of it that's not philosophical. A lot of it is just, I need to prove this person is wrong, to validate everything I've been saying for the last 20 years, because if he's right, then I wouldn't be able to handle it because I can't admit I'm wrong. So would you like to debate with someone who cannot admit they're wrong? That doesn't work. But sometimes in the name of philosophy, there's deeper things going on. As we've often seen in debates, they're not coming to debate to find what's true. They're coming to debate to prove the other wrong. And why do I need to prove someone else wrong? Isn't finding the truth better, higher, more valuable? Of course. So, you know, these are things to consider. That's a whole other topic. But this is a topic of self-reflection. Like when you say something or when you see something, it looks like you're saying and seeing and reacting to what is just obvious, but you might be seeing and saying and reacting to something much deeper within yourself. And so introspection is, you know, is important, because then you ask, why am I reacting like that to this? There's probably more going on than I see. You know, you ever, you know, like when you're in a bad mood and you get upset about a little thing, you understand why you're reacting that way. You know you're in a bad mood and you know it's not about that. But a lot of times you don't know because it's so deep. And sometimes you don't find out till you're like 50 years old or 60 or 70 or maybe never. But you can find out if you just ask yourself why, and you're willing to be honest and look. Say, why am I reacting like this to this situation? Like, I know every time I'm in this situation, it makes me uneasy. Why? Because I'm thinking it's the person that makes me uneasy, because that's the easiest way to explain it. And that's the Tamasic way to explain it. So if you have a problem and your go-to solution is to see the problem as externally caused by a situation or person, that's often the go-to for people in Tamagun. And the go-to for people in Sattvagun is, what do I have to do with this? So, you know, we want to be sattvic. So at least go to, what did I have to do with this? Maybe you had nothing to do with it, but at least you examine it to see. And sometimes we will have something to do with it, but we're not ready yet to admit it, or we're not able to see it. But at least if we're asking the question, why do I get upset when I'm with this person? Why does this person trigger me? Like, I know what they're like, but I don't want to blame them for my emotions. So why am I reacting to them like this? What's going on within me? That's important. Chaitanya Dasi says, as a result of this class, our license to do stupid things has been revoked. I hope so. But who's going to go to your house and revoke it? You have to revoke it. Take it and burn it and throw it in the dustbin, the trash can. Okay, Ishan has his hand up, so we're going to let you speak. You have your hand up on purpose?
I have a question. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Danut Pranam.
Yes.
One thing you mentioned, like we transform from, like, how do we transform our thinking from Bhagwan to, like, from Paramatma to Bhagwan, I think, right? So this thing I didn't, like, this thing was not clear to me. I was like, I'll ask this.
Paramatma is for the yogis. That's that's the focus of meditation for the yogis. So we never really start with Paramatma.
Okay.
Because once you become a devotee, and you join ISKCON, basically you're a devotee. So
Mhm.
we're not even meditating on Paramatma. It's
Okay.
because Krishna is the one who's reciprocating love, and Paramatma is the one who's neutral. So now you're a devotee, Krishna's reciprocating. So, it's always Krishna.
Okay.
There's Paramatma is there in the second canto in Bhagavatam. We learn about him. It's just a
Mhm.
feature of Krishna. And then we learn about different features of Krishna, but it's like, wow, when my father was a kid, he played baseball. That's cool. But he doesn't play baseball now, and I don't play baseball, so it doesn't matter. So it's like, it's just a feature. Oh, when he was a kid, he played guitar in a rock band. Now he plays violin, but it's cool to know. It's like, it just endears me to know that he's so good at so many things. But that's not the father I'm reacting with now.
Okay. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Ray has a question. Buenos dias. Should I translate into Spanish? Yo quiero demander a cuestión poquito distance de horas tópica, pero es un tópica por mexicanos. Ayer, primero, how do you say mujeres, the first one? She has to, of course, Anuradha has to translate my Spanish into Spanish. We know that. Anyway, I'll read it. Good morning. I want to ask a question a little far from today's topic, which is topical for Mexicans. Yesterday, the first woman was elected president of this country. Oh, no, are you kidding? I'm never going to Mexico again. Only kidding. The victory has been total and overwhelming. She has PhD, you mean? And I've seen that women well prepared in some field of knowledge have the possibility of having economic stability and therefore are independent from men. Jordan Peterson's studies explain this phenomenon in the United States and Canada. Well, I see that men are more fallen than women. Is this true? Let's ask the women what they think. Women, are men more fallen than women? This resounding yes. Ask the men this question. I don't think so. Maybe it is the sexual aspect that is a cause of our disasters, men. Yes, that is. And finally, do you have a seminar available to achieve sexual purity? Yeah, it's below. I think when we're talking about men and women, it's always good to ask which man and which woman are you talking about? So then you don't have to generalize. And if a woman is qualified to do something and a man says she isn't, even though she's proving she's qualified, well, that says a lot about the man's dislike of women. And that could be connected to so many problems he had with women in so many lifetimes, who knows? Or it can be connected to his aversion because he's attracted and he wants to feel in a superior position. Men naturally want to be in a superior position. So a lot of men are they're insecure around intelligent and qualified women. They don't like it because it emasculates them. So, but as devotees, we are meant to encourage and be happy for everyone's success. It's like, I don't like your success because you're the wrong species. You're the female species. You're the wrong race because, oh my God, if I say a female Russian woman is smarter than me, that's like 2 strikes against me. I thought I was smarter than all women and all Russians. I can't admit that because I was raised to think I'm the smartest thing that God ever created. Or just that I was raised to think there's no woman can be as smart as me. It's not possible. So then I see something, but I filter it through my perceptions, these filters. And although the woman is more qualified than me, I don't see it like that because I have filters that it's not possible. And there's so many things going on. And so you have rightly analyzed that men, may have problems with women. Of course they do. But Prabhupada says that in the Bhagavatam, that men, they like, they have bigger egos, so they naturally need to feel superior to women. But we're devotees. So when Prabhupada says men are like this, women are like this, it's natural psychology of male and female, well, it doesn't always mean it's meant to apply to devotees. He's just describing conditioned souls. This is how they are. So generally, because conditioned souls are like this way, we should play by those rules, So, women, make your guy think he's the smartest thing in the universe, because that'll make him happy. But guys, if your wife's smarter than you, then just acknowledge it. So we're transcending these things. It's not like, oh, my wife cannot possibly be smarter than I am because Shastra says women are less intelligent. But we're not in Krishna consciousness to compete for intelligence prizes or whatever. We're here to serve. So there's a lot of things varnashram-ish that don't apply to devotees. So, a woman should be submissive, do whatever her husband wants. But does that mean a man should not do what his wife wants because he's a man? Well, what do our scriptures say? I am servant of the servant of the servant. I think that's what it says. You read that verse? You've heard that before? Das, anu das. Yeah, well, that verse is fine, but not for my wife. Forget it. That's only for men. I'm only servant of the servant of men, not women. No, it's not what it says. It says everyone. Yes. I just heard a story and some dogs were coming. Prabhupada was taking prasadam and they were trying to get the dogs away. And Prabhupada said, no, let them come. And he tore a chapati in two dogs, each got one. Then he said, go. And then they left. So dogs, oh, they're dirty. And, and Prabhupada said, this was in Vrindavan. He said, you never know who they are. So, the vision of a pure devotee was different than our vision. So now there's another problem, Ray, as you know. Cultural conditioning. We have cultural conditioning that in some cases is antagonistic to the heart of a devotee. So in our culture, it's like this. And some of the cultural conditioning we may have is very toxic and violent and tamasic and aggressive. And a lot of us raised in that environment act that way, and we don't even realize it because that's how we've always acted. So it's really important to look at bhakti culture and bhakti philosophy in relation to how we are behaving and acting and what's going on in our temples, rather than just, well, this is just how we do it in this country. So, all right, every country isn't like Tamagun. Is that an excuse for doing it that way? No. So that's where we have a lot of problems. It's like we're looking at varnashram, and it's just like for non-devotees, and then we're trying to apply it for devotees, and then we're acting like non-devotees. But at the same time, we don't throw it out entirely. We use what's useful, as with anything. We use it. Pavani, I'm afraid of myself and don't blame Krishna. Another t-shirt. Perhaps we accept our mistakes, but the other person does not accept their mistake. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but Nothing you can do about it. Is there? You ever try to tell someone they made a mistake who doesn't believe they did? Raise your hand if you've done that. And you'll qualify yourself in the stupid club. How many times have you done it? That's how many times you're stupid. Yeah. I made a policy never to preach to a Christian after having done it multiple times and realizing that was multiple minutes or hours that were wasted. And you know why we do it? Because this big false ego. I need to be right. I need to prove I'm right. Like I can't just, thank you, walk away. That's an interesting point. Thank you for sharing. No, I have to smash you. Hare Krishna. Yeah. I heard a saying, I don't know who said it. Oh, it was Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, when presidents were actually smart. Ha ha ha. That was a joke. No, it's not a joke. It's true. When there was a time when American presidents were actually like intelligent, like philosophical, you know, and they had good qualities and so forth. He said, I've never met a person that I didn't learn something from. But some of those people, I learned what not to do. No, and he said, most of them, I learned what not to do. So, you know, if a person, like you say, the other person doesn't want to admit their mistakes, so you can learn, well, this is not good. I should admit my mistakes because I'm learning what not to do by observing them rather than needing to put them down and be frustrated. And, you know, in case you haven't noticed, you probably noticed you're not in control of everything. Have you noticed that recently? Has that come up in your life that you're not in control of everything? So that's the problem. When someone's making a mistake, we want to like change them. Can I like spin your head around till you get this clear instead of just saying, I don't know if they're ever going to learn, but it's not my department. Of course, if you're married and they're driving you crazy, you may have to have some discussion, but a lot of times it's just the way it is. And it's very difficult to accept that. But I did read a few verses that you've probably seen them, that Krishna's God and we're not. You've read those verses before? You must have seen them, right? You know what that means? Krishna's God and you're not? You ever think about that? Well, next time you're trying to control somebody or something that you can't, just remember those many verses. Pull out your Bhagavad Gita and read those verses. I am the controller in everyone's heart. And although Krishna doesn't say the second half of that verse, you're not the controller, that's the implication, right? Yes. Maybe we can write a new verse in the Gita. We should create the 19th chapter of the Gita, you know, all these little like interpretations of what Krishna says. Krishna says, I'm God and you're not, in case you haven't noticed. That's a good teacher, right? Krishna says, I'm God and you're not, in case you haven't. Yeah, you can, Krishna says, I'm God, you can stop trying. You don't have to try. I'm God, you don't have to try anymore. There's already a God, you don't have to don't worry everyone, there's already a God. You can just relax. And I don't think you'd want to be God because how would you keep the universe going? How would you deal with all the demons? Anyway, Hare Krishna. Yeah. I think I was discussing this yesterday or the day before. Yeah. Thinking about this, like self-reflection, how important it is to be self-reflective. Because if we're not, we always will see things through the mistakes of others. And do you know, when you're focused on the mistakes of others, what mode of nature do you think you're in at that moment? Who would like to guess? The top, middle, or bottom? I'll give you a hint. It starts with B. Right, the bottom, Tamagun. Yeah, that's when you're criticizing, that's what mode you're in. Did you know that? And when you see a fault that you don't need to point out, there's no value in it, and you appreciate someone, you know what mode you're in at that point? Starts with an S. That's when you're in Sattva Guna. So now what mode do you want to be in? It's as simple as appreciating or criticizing. You can just switch the mode switch, you know. In passion, you're like trying to outdo the person. Just like you're not only actively criticizing, you're actively like trying to put yourself as the number one top dog of the universe at the expense of this person. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be in passion and ignorance when you can just appreciate and be in goodness? But if you're faulting that person and you don't feel like appreciating, then just try to understand you're right now operating within the modes of nature, and it's not good. And when you feel like appreciating, very good sign. And if you don't feel like it, just do it, and then you'll feel like it. That's a symptom of sattva guna. Is there's a problem, you look in your heart and say, how am I contributing? The symptom of tamaguna is there's a problem, and you look at how everyone's contributing to the problem. Simple ABCs of the modes of nature in relation to fault finding and complaining. I just made a video yesterday, which you'll see at some point. I said, complaining is not bad. Complaining and doing nothing is tamaguna. You complain, this is bad, do something, sattva-guna. I'm complaining about Ishan. Oh, if I'm complaining, I should help him, sattva-guna. If I just complain about him and let him rot in hell, that's tamaguna. I'm complaining about the weather. Well, put on a jacket. Make a solution. Hare Krishna. Clear? Is it clear? Chaitanya Dasi. In class, I heard recently Prabhupada repeats again and again that character is much more important than material knowledge and college degrees. So maybe we can think more about building our own character than who's more or less intelligent. Wow. Only an intelligent woman could say such a thing. A good way to end class, huh? Chaitanya Dasi, your husband must have whispered that in your ear because you could have never said anything because you're a woman. Women couldn't say those things. Actually, she's a man. She just dresses like a woman. There's got to be something fishy here. You know, she's got an earplug in her. She's listening to Jordan Peterson as we're speaking. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm gonna disappear from your universe right now and do all the favorite things I hate to do. Make phone calls and get information. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Premanand. Thank you for
Hare-
coming. See you on Wednesday. Yeah.